Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 12th day of June 2023, a very important day because it marks exactly 9 months since President William Ruto became, and of course, it is a very crucial week for him and the administration as they get to present their first fiscal budget, which will be read by the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury, Professor Njoroge Ndungu, on Thursday afternoon. That is Thursday, the 15th of June, 2023. Also a very important week because you're expecting the Finance and Planning Committee of the National Assembly to present its report of the Finance Bill 2023. Some say that it's possible tomorrow afternoon. And after that, of course, we'll be seeing a debate of the finance bill, discussion about the report, and of course, direction on what should happen moving forward, knowing that there has been a lot of controversial issues and recommendations on how to move forward. But also, you're looking at the papers on the front page of the Daily Nation, Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. The story continues on page 4 and 5. On page 4, you'll find that not so different. Ruto reads from Uhuru's playbook. During the presidential campaigns last year, the head of state often declared that he would take a governance approach starkly different to that of his predecessor. 9 months later, the similarities stand out. And the president has been wooing opposition lawmakers to push his agenda in parliament. And there's a quote here: "This government is a company that has shares. There are owners who have the majority of shares and those with just a few, while others do not have any." That is DP Rigathi Gachagua, who spoke early in the time of the new administration, and so much more, based on analysis by the Daily Nation. Then, of course, on the Standard, the main story is reforms, diploma shock at universities in new proposals to be presented to the president later this week. Experts say universities should not offer diploma and certificate courses, a move that will make many institutions drop facilities, lecturers and students. Of course, you already know that the programs for diploma are not to be financed, especially those at the universities. Those that are to be to attract government scholarship will be for degree programs alone. Then on page 5 of the Standard, MPs to amend disputed finance bill closes. Parliamentary committee says views and petitions from the public have been addressed. Did not, however, divulge which clauses have been amended. But of course, we've heard from Seth Olale some of the proposals that are being put in that report of the Finance and Planning Committee, which should be out probably to be tabled tomorrow afternoon. In studio, I have David Ocheng, the Member of Parliament for Ugenya constituency. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Sam. How are you doing? I'm
great.
Hope you had a good weekend.
Yes, good to see you.
Very good to see you too.
And we have Fred Okango, the Political Affairs Secretary at Kano. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, sir.
Sorry, I had something in my ear. That's what distracted me. And we are still expecting Juan Gathoni Wamushomba, who is the Member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency. And I will wait to see. As soon as she joins us, she'll be joining the conversation. But I want us to start by that developing story about the finance bill, because again, like I said, a very crucial week, Mheshimiwa Ocheng, for the Kenya Kwanza administration, even as it marks 9 months since William Ruto was sworn in as president. Have we made progress, and what should we be expecting as we wait to hear the reading of the 3.67 trillion shilling budget and the tabling of the Finance and Planning Committee report?
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. Definitely there's progress because every administration comes with its own template of how it wants to work and things that it wants to focus on. And I believe in 9 months, most of if you look at how administrations handle their first year or first 6 months all over the world, the first 6-7 months are normally for paper reforms, not quite substantive reforms, in terms of the meat. But you find a signature here on a law, or a signature here on a bill, or a signature there on a reform measure that is supposed to, make us look into the future and see what kind of, governance is going to happen. And remember, from the word go, there had been 6 judges who had not been appointed for more than 3 years. That was done in this administration. Those subsidies that were, really bleeding us from of our tax revenue that was also just removed.
Right.
I believe there are things that have been done in the last 8 months that show us the direction that this government wants to take. JSS, when it was started, remember when the president came in, there was a lot of confusion about CBC and JSS. Now there's stability. We now know, everyone knows where the CBC is going. Everyone now knows where the junior secondary school education is going, and I believe that reform has been done in the right manner. And over time, if the kind of proposals that have been made to be implemented over time, I believe we're going to have a more stable education system that prepares our children and our young people for the jobs of the future. There's been proper reforms, in my opinion, in agriculture, access to farm inputs. We saw what happened in the last 3-4 months in the long range planting period. There are issues around that many people didn't get the fertilizer on time, but I believe these are teething problems, and we've raised them in Parliament with the relevant committees and relevant ministries, that in future they should try to ensure that these fertilizers are ready on time. Some people are still getting fertilizer now for planting that should have happened in April. And so in that regard, again, reforms in agriculture has been, as I think, seen a lot of changes. There's a lot of reforms that are being undertaken in the energy sector. Right. You would know, Sam, that there's so much happening in that sector because of the high cost of energy in the country. And this has to do with things like, those independent power producers, purchase agreements, Kenya Power's lethargic and historical, loss-making streak, and, Ketraco's underfunding and all this. There's reforms being done in that regard when other things are being handled in the right manner. Infrastructure. Right. So many roads had, contractors had left the sites. We are now seeing most of them going back to these sites. One of them was in my constituency, and it's all over the country. You go to Western Kenya, Central Kenya. So many roads had been abandoned by the contractors because of pending bills. We've seen the government speaking to these contractors, agreeing to go back to the sites. Money is being, found to be able to get some of them going back to the sites. And housing. I mean, so I believe that the president's agenda, or what he called the plan, is being handled in the right manner. But of course, there are teething problems that would arise with every other government, as is expected. I would not expect 100% performance in 9 months, because the biggest issue that we are now facing today, Sam, is lack of cash. Yeah. And we will get that in the next hour to get deeper into some of those. No, because if you're going to discuss performance, no, we will. It goes with capacity to to do things, and money is a very central factor. Yes, in Honorable Cheng, I agree with you. Yeah. And you have highlighted some of the things that have changed, including the junior secondary school. Yeah. We'll talk about what has been the situation on the ground with principals and head teachers complaining of resources. That's right. That is in the next hour. But for now, I want us to really reflect on what has been happening with the finance bill. We understand that the committee that has been meeting in Naivasha has made some concessions on some of the clauses to review, some to be dropped. Fred, yet your party remains adamant that if this is passed as is, then back to the streets. But also, you're saying that you want to reject it. You don't even want to amend it. So how do we get out of this in a proper manner?
Thank you, Sam. We have said before, Sam, and on 8th of June, that's last week, we gave final instructions to our members of parliament and laid down our final objection to this Finance Bill 2023. We have continued to say that this bill is punitive and is scandalous. It's a bad bill that must be rejected in total, that must be rejected in entirety. That is the position of the Azimio Coalition Party, led by Raila Amolo Odinga. And we did say that because we have gone through the bill. On 8th, the Azimio Economic Council, led by former Governor Nderetu Murithi and team, Honorable Mbadi was there, and the rest of the council members highlighted the controversial issues in the bill to the public. And we all agree as Kenyans that this bill has got clauses that if passed as is, then this country will be affected in a bigger way. And all those have been canvassed, including with the expert that some of them have been hosted in this very noble studio. And majority of Kenyans have said that in this bill, there are so many things that don't make sense to them. We have highlighted some of them. The 3% housing levy on those who are employed, that is mandatory. The 20% deposit that you have to give when you are appealing some of the disputes you have. The 15% tax on digital content, and many others, and even the 16% VAT on the petroleum products that is going to affect Kenyans in a big way. And therefore we have said that this bill is like a new disease that cannot be treated with the ordinary medicine. That's what Chinua Achebe says. So for us, we strongly believe that even if they amend this bill as they would want to do, we are told that they want to amend, now they want to drop, I don't know, the 3% fantasy on housing to something 1.5%. We are told they want to do away with the 15% tax withholding on the digital content. That does not address the issue. The biggest concern that Kenyans have today is the concern of the cost of living that is going up. The 16% VAT on petroleum products is an issue that is going to affect majority, because when that happens, the projection is such that the cost of petrol will increase by over 9 shillings, the diesel will increase by over 10 shillings, and basically the cost of manufacture will increase, because that is how things are. So what we have asked them, sorry, and you know, Honorable Ruto told Kenyans that he respects every job. And he told Kenyans that kazi ni kazi. Honorable Ruto told Kenyans that every job matters. Today, his regime is trying to raise revenue by taxing even some of the chamas, you know, the merry-go-rounds, the bankings that the women are using in the villages. And if you look at the young people that are being taxed the 15%, for sure, I don't think he respects every job as he said. So for us in Azimio, we had given our final instructions, we had laid down our final objection, and we told them, depending on how things go, that was the statement by Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, depending on how things go, then this bill might take a different turn. We are happy that they are now going for concessions. But you know, even as they go for concessions, we'd want to ask Honorable Ruto and team to go for more concessions. By the time we are going for the third reading of this bill, or the passage of it, or even the presidential assent, then they shall have withdrawn all this bill altogether, so that they table a bill that is pro-people. They table a bill...
Is that possible, Fred?
That's what we are hoping and praying for, because, you see, there's time. They can still do that. If they listen to the memoranda that was submitted by the majority of Kenyans, and they are now planning to amend, it means they can still listen to Kenyans more and adopt and accommodate every other issue, so that we don't have a contested bill. As it is today, majority of even Kenya Kwanza...
So what is more appropriate? Is it to amend or to withdraw and come up with another one?
The position of Azimio Coalition Party is not to amend. The position of Coalition Party of Azimio is to withdraw the bill, and let's table a bill that is pro-people, because this bill is not pro-people of Kenya.
Okay. I want us to listen to what the leaders of Azimio Coalition had to say sometime last week.
Finance bill ni mbovu. Inapatia mtu ambaye akona helikopta, akona ndege, asilipe tax ya hiyo ndege na spare yake. Lakini wewe mama wa kupika chai na chapati na madasi, wewe bodaboda, wewe mtu unapata shilingi 1,400 kwa kila siku, wewe unaitishwa kodi. Tunasema lazima kodi iwe na uwazi na iwe inaleta kuiganania gweta wate na githweri usawa. iwe inaleta usawa kwa kila mtu.
Sisi kama wanaazimio tunasema kwamba kiwango ambacho Wanakenya wanaulizwa walipe ushuru huo haiwezekani. Umaskini ni mwingi, COVID kwanza ilianza, na kwingineko duniani kote serikali za dunia zinajaribu kuona vile wananchi wanaweza kujimudu. Lakini hapa naona bado tear gas iko njiani. Na sisi sio wenda wazimu.
All right. So that is Kalonzo Musyoka saying that you can see that tear gas is on the way. I bet he means that there will be demonstrations. But Honorable Cheng, so, I mean, listening to even the leadership of Azimio in the House, that is Opiyo Wandayi, was saying that they reject it in totality without any space for amendments. What is practical, given that by the 1st of July, you need to start collecting revenues based on a different framework?
Sam, you know, we've been through this before. I don't want us to look at it as if it's a very isolated situation. We've been in these situations before where the opposition and government spar over issues, and I'm certain that we'll get a solution. Like the chairman of the Finance Committee has said, on this finance bill, there's been so many presentations and memoranda on things that need to be dealt with. And by the time they went to Naivasha, by the way, they had sat in Nairobi for more than 2 weeks at Hilton Garden on Mombasa Road. We were sitting there at the budget committee, and everyone came to present their views, and as that's as should be. And so the idea that as the new guys would say that it's their way or nothing, it's normal. I only wish that there was a bill, a counter bill, because private members can present bills.
Including a finance bill?
Yeah, they can if they wanted to.
It's a government bill.
No, bring one if you think this is the best thing to do. I mean, by the way the current parliament works, is that finance bill must not come from government. If Azimio had a bill that they could present and it's passed, that's what the government will have to implement. That's the way parliament works. Anybody can present their own finance bill today. It doesn't have to come from them. If they presented their own proposals for revenue raising measures, and it's passed by Parliament, Treasury will have to implement that. That's the way Parliament now works. Anybody can present a bill on any matter now. There's no government in the House. All right? But the reason the finance bill is, in course, a government bill is because it's the government that has a budget that they want to implement. And so you do a budget and provide revenue raising measures. Last week on Thursday, we passed the budget. I never had a single protestation from the Azimio side on anything on that budget.
What do you mean you passed the budget?
Yes, the budget was passed on Thursday.
So what is the CS coming to do on Thursday?
This is what happened, Sam. With the new constitution, the budget making process is left at 70% to Parliament. So what happened on Thursday could still pass. We didn't need the minister to come. But the reason the minister comes to Parliament on the 15th of June is to meet the requirement of the EAC treaty. We could actually do with that ceremony, if you didn't know, in the country today. We could do that away with the 15th June, and we will be fine. But to meet the requirement of this our community that our Minister of Finance must present their budgets on the same day. So on the 15th of June, Uganda Parliament will have their minister, Tanzania the same, Rwanda the same, and Burundi the same. But in terms of our current legal architecture, Parliament has the last word on this. And so what the minister will present on Thursday is already known. It is what was passed on Thursday by Parliament. And what I was saying is that I never had any of the Azimio people protesting on any of the things in the budget. So what finance bill does is to provide for revenue raising measures to finance the budget. And so you cannot have a budget that is acceptable, that everyone says this is fine, and then when you want to raise resources to implement it or to finance it, then they're telling you, drop it. It's not the way it works. Now, there are particular provisions in the finance bill that could be offensive. And that's what we are saying, that when these people come, these MPs come from Naivasha, we are hoping that, as Emil said, will come with amendments, just like the committee will come with amendments on areas that may be offensive. One of the areas that personally I would probably propose to amend is what we just talked about. The issue of 20% deposits. It is purely, in my opinion, untenable. It should not stand. Now, I've just heard the Honorable Mother Karo, whom I respect so much, talk about aircraft spare parts. And this has been explained. I'm a regional integration expert personally. That's what I've done in my life. That's the role that I practice. Now, Wilson Airport is one of the busiest in Africa. Busiest because if you are there, you find there's so many aircraft that land there. The small aircraft that land there. Now, we raise the taxes on aircraft spare parts and aircraft servicing. Now, places that don't even have expertise like now Entebbe and Kilimanjaro here are now receiving more aircraft for repairs and buying their spare parts in South Africa and not in the country. So this measure is not meant to make aircraft cheaper. No, it's meant to draw aircraft into our airports for servicing, to create jobs. That's what it is. Let me tell you, if you went to Mombasa today, ships that come in to our port have to go fuel in Seychelles. The reason is that we charge very high, we have a very high tax rate on fueling here. You have to put the 16% VAT. Now, if they go fueling in Seychelles, they're not, it's duty-free. And so we're losing business in that regard. It's the same thing. So there are things that may be true. There are things that are hyperbole. And so I would want us to look at the finance bill. I think this has really been litigated, if you asked me, in your studios and the public domain. There's nothing new to be said on the finance bill, in my opinion.
So for you think returning the repair works to Nairobi is a benefit that overrides what you may lose, or what people may say that you're favoring those that are rich instead of the poor?
Yeah, because I wonder how many people own aircraft in the country. How many people own aircraft? How many do you know that own aircraft? You are Sam. How many do you know as Okango that people own aircraft in the country? They're accountable. And so you cannot tell me that the reduction in price in spare parts, in that regard, would be making the country lose anything. On the contrary, we are gaining, and talk to the civil aviation authority of the country. It is actually a net gain in the long term. There's no net loss at all in that regard. Yeah. So the idea that you're favoring those who are going to be buying aircrafts, I think is hyperbole. You cannot call it anything else. It's sensational. Yeah, that's what it is. And some, when governments are elected, normally governments have a plan on what they want to achieve. These plans are sold to the people. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but you cannot beat a man for doing what you would have done in that same situation. This housing fund thing was not, in my opinion, a Ruto creation. Uhuru and Ruto tried it during their time. In the campaigns,
it didn't work.
In the campaigns we had, Raila Amolo Odinga himself said, this is a good thing that must be introduced in Newsom government. So if the issue is timing, and the government is saying that for us this is the best timing because we are planning with 4 years. Here there's Zimo said saying this is not the right time. If they were running government, I'm sure they would have had their own timing. This is the timing of this kind of government.
But what's the right thing to do in the circumstances that you're in?
If you have a plan, and Sam, let me tell you, people are not elected to do the easy things. And I said this last time.
No, I said right.
People are not elected to do the easy things. People are elected to do the things that are necessary to move the country to the next level. And the president thinks that the best thing to do now is to invest in housing, because it's going to just not provide affordable housing and low-cost housing, but it has a potential for creating many jobs. And if there was time, I'd explain to you this, how jobs have been created all over the world through this kind of ventures, through this kind of stimulus. If people talk about Singapore, people talk about, if you look at the European Marshall Plan, the idea normally is to introduce projects that have long-term impact. And look at it this way. If the housing fund were to be a reality, and we deal with corruption and accountability, Siaya, Kisumu, Busia, you set up an industry there that manufactures nails, wood and furniture products, cement, and all this. If you go to Busia today, cement is being produced 10 kilometers into the border with us by the Mombasa cement manufacturer here. If you did that in Western Kenya, you'll be serving not just Western Kenya, you'll be serving Uganda, you'll be serving Southern Sudan, you'll be serving Chad and all that. You create an environment for industry to grow, not just for your own housing equipment, but for the rest of the region. And so for me, let me tell you the truth, I believe in the housing fund. completely, even without having to be convinced by anybody else. I believe in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you. I want us to take a quick break and then conclude on this particular issue before we transition to the next conversation, which is about the challenges that the government has been having with the cash. And of course, we've seen some of the services that have been affected. If it's in health, if it's in education, if it's the counties, the complaints continue. We're back in a moment.